Hello, I am Deb Coviello, the drop-in CEO. And as always, I just want to thank you for showing up where week after week I get to speak to the most amazing leaders who share their insights with you. And just know we do this podcast because I sincerely care about the C-suite leader to help them navigate their challenges and opportunities with confidence. And this week, it is my pleasure to introduce to you founder and CEO of Towerwall, Michelle Drolet, and is absolutely amazing and has been honored by CTO Magazine as a top women in cybersecurity, and last year Forbes 50 over 50. She has an amazing backstory. She also has several of her family members in her employment, and she just has an amazing record. And I just cannot wait for her to share her story with you. But Michelle, thank you so much for dropping in on the show.
Oh, I'm so excited to speak with you, Deb.
And I as well. And just to my listeners, I feel so grateful that Michelle and I were introduced. We have had so much fun getting to know each other before we jumped on a call here. Just a wonderful human that shares a lot of the same life challenges and opportunities as I. And I just cannot wait for her to share her whole story with you. But Michelle, I'm going to pass it back to you to share a little bit about yourself personally and professionally.
Sure. So again, very, very honored to be here and thank you very much. You know, I have been in the cybersecurity space, I can't believe it, for almost 30 years. And again, had somebody really look and say, you know what, I need you to do this for me. When Deb, a lot of times you go, I don't know if I can do that. And now here I am, almost 30 years later. And so, a gentleman hired me, made me his president of his America's organization. And then we sold it and I got to buy it back. And so since 1999, I've been the CEO of Towerwall and have built this cybersecurity practice, really walking alongside our clients in their cyber journeys, so to.
But so interesting. And again, I appreciate the conciseness of your story. And that, again, a woman rising to these roles of responsibilities, there's so much more in there. But you said something that somebody saw something in you, despite maybe not necessarily having the technical capability. What was that like? What was your reaction? And what did they say to you when they said, I want you to come in as part of my leadership?
So it's not very often that you have a customer say, can I take you to lunch? And that's
Wow.
exactly what Nazar did. He called me and said, Michelle, I'd like to take you to lunch. And that was the best Mexican dinner I've ever had. But he said, I'd like you to come join my team. And, I really enjoy working with you. I like your integrity. I like how you do business. And I know that you are a good role model for what we're trying to build in the US. And I had to go back because I took a pay cut and say to my husband, is this something that I should do? And he was like, yeah, let's do it. And so I took that offer, and the rest is history.
But what was your technical area of expertise before they brought you into cybersecurity?
I actually was a technical trainer 100 years ago, as well as a product manager, I guess. But that technical training for different technologies, both highly technical and user based. So that was kind of my communication entree into this whole place that we live in today.
So what's really, really critical, and again, I want to just take a pause here in the conversation as I turn to my listeners. What we just heard right now is that while she stepped into a parallel or completely different industry, people out there that are your advocates see your value. And sometimes when people say, well, you don't have exactly this experience, just know that's not relevant. You need to find people that you've established a relationship with, and that's part two, that really value who you are and can be your advocate. So just know that you have value, not just where you've been pigeonholed in, but possibly future. And the fact that you had an amazing relationship with this customer, you never, ever know where those next opportunities come from based on being very human centric, building trust with people in your circle.
I am, amen.
So very, very important. So, oh my, talk to me a little bit about then you became a president within this organization, and at some point you had the opportunity to buy it back. What was that transition like? What was happening?
So we built the organization up to a certain point, and the goal was to sell it. So I found the right buyer, and we sold it, and I got sold with it, which seemed to be like a good opportunity at the time until it wasn't. And so again, I turned to my husband and said, "This is not working out. Can you fund me to help buy this thing back?" And so again, he has been my cornerstone throughout my career. And we put the money up to buy the organ, offered to buy the company back. And in 1999, again, Towerwall became mine. And that's when we did our first penetration test.
What does that mean, please? I'm not familiar. I'm not a cybersecurity expert. So, what then
Okay,
does that
I
mean?
know that
Thank you.
sounds kind of funny. So we are ethical hackers. So we are hired by our clients to actually go in and try to break into their networks. And at that point in 1999, people were trying to figure out what to do, and the bad guys were bad. But again, it was just kind of, I'm throwing technology to solve a problem. And
Mhm.
we said, you know what? It's not just about technology, it's understanding where your holes, where your strengths and your weaknesses are. So we said, we're going to start building out a vulnerability management program for our clients, which was a little bit ahead of the curve.
Oh, beautiful. Okay, so you step into this role. Has it been easy peasy the whole time? What have been some of your challenges now as a first time C-suite leader, head of a company? Um, I just want to understand that because obviously you've been in this role for some time. You seem very comfortable and confident with what you do and your value. But what was that journey like when you were growing into that role?
So somebody told me a long time, if it was easy, everybody would do it, and everybody does not do it. And so it is not easy.
Okay.
Uh, but you know what? With the right team in place,
Hmm.
and that's what my father taught me a long time ago, is that you surround people that are way smarter than you, and and execute. And sometimes it's failing fast, right, and learning.
Hmm.
And so we have failed fast a lot, and failed forward. Sometimes we failed backwards. uh, I personally have stepped back 5 steps and then taken 2 steps sideways and 2 steps forward. It's never a straight path, and it's certainly not always fun. But when you surround yourself with the right team members
Hmm.
who are able to challenge each other along the way, it makes a huge difference.
So this is a really important point because every leader at some point in their career may lose their confidence a little bit when circumstances change and you don't get the desired outcome. And you've talked about basically your resiliency. So again, I want to make a point to everybody that how we respond to such situations is what makes us better, and the people that are following us will respect us despite the challenges and not getting the desired outcome. I would love, though, just if you could just give us just a little bit of context, that situation where things didn't turn out exactly where you wanted them to be, but through this reflection, backwards, sidestep, et cetera, you then came forward with a better outcome. And then we're going to shine a light on the work that you do.
Awesome, awesome. So real quick, so uh, not to give you a whole bunch of my background, but uh, we raised 3 beautiful, now um, very amazing women uh, through the our journey here in Towerwall, or my journey. And I kept the organization a certain size. So
Right.
we kept it a size that I could personally manage, and kept that growth, kept our profitability most of the time, and kept moving forward, but saying, you know what, I can't get any bigger because I can't take care of my family. And as soon as all the girls were out of the house, I said, you know what? now is the time to rip the band-aids off and
Mm.
change and do all these things. So I said, okay, I am going to now bring some additional people in that are going to help me now grow to X and then to Y and then to Z. Well, unfortunately, the two people I brought in who I thought were going to be amazing were not necessarily that.
Mm.
And at the same time, I broke both bones in the outside of my ankle. And I tell this because it's kind of pertinent to the story. So I had to sit on the couch in my great room for 3.5 months, basically, because I was non-weight bearing. So these two gentlemen were then really running my company and or our company. And I had some semblance of what was going on, but not as in hands-on as I normally was. As soon as I was able to walk, I then got diagnosed with breast cancer. And so again, I got sat down hard, uh, through a journey of recovery, and I'm 100% and it's awesome. But when I actually got back and really working back in the business, I realized that we were completely in debt. Our customers had not been taken care of. It was crazy. So I respectfully asked them to leave. And a couple of the things that they did, I will give them. They put some stuff in place to help us to be where we are today. But
Okay.
2017, and again, I'm still ripping band-aids off. And I'm going, I don't know how we're going to do this because they had maxed out my credit line and our sales were down. And I was like, Lord. And we went into our accounting department, our accountant. And I said, I don't know what we're going to do. And I had tears in my eyes. And so we took money out of our bank account. Again, my husband right behind me. And we put that money in. And that was almost 2019. 2020 hit. And I don't know how it did it. I mean, obviously, everybody was working hard. We were back taking good care of our clients. We were
Right.
adding new clients, all of that kind of stuff. But out of COVID, we were completely out of debt. We had new clients. We had an amazing team that came on board, and it was crazy. And so, again, from out of the ashes comes some amazing things. And during that time, in that 2019, my oldest daughter called me, and she had been in the cyberspace in management, in sales, at $1 billion cyber company, and said, you know what, Mom, I think it's time I joined Towerwall. Would that be okay? And that was the best call in the whole world. She's been with me almost 6 years now, right?
Oh,
2025.
amazing.
And now she's my VP of sales and operations. So, and she calls me Michelle.
But at
So
home, she calls you.
out of like craziness, you just again, it's my faith. And knowing that I need to just continue to move forward and listen. And that sometimes it's not our will. And we need to sometimes just hand stuff over.
So when I open my shows up, sometimes I say, and you will be in, get insights, but also I often add the words and inspiration. And I just want to share, Michelle, that this is inspiring to me as well on a personal note because I too, in pursuit of trying to achieve peace of mind and peace of mind of the people that I serve, it has been a rough journey, both financially as well as business development. But I also have had a few junctures in time where I needed to be still. I needed to be on the couch. And while it wasn't comfortable, because we're doers, we're trying to create the outcomes, and it was very hard, out of those comes new insights, new purpose, and things do start to happen. And so, for anybody out there that has had some of these ups and downs, and you figure if you continue to do more, sometimes it's better to do a little bit less and take that sabbatical and then realize what can you do, and a little bit of faith or spirituality or whatever that is for you and try to believe that the universe is going to come back to you. And so this was very inspiring to me. We're going to talk offline here why it was so inspiring. But I want to now shine a light on the work that you are in service to your customers. So I'd love to know what then working alongside your customers and on their security journey, what does that look like? So that if there's anybody out there that's like scratching their head and thinking, I might need to do something, I want them to understand how you work with them.
Absolutely. So somebody asked me the other day, they said, so when does an organization need to start thinking about their information security program or just locking the doors and locking the windows? And it's like, as soon as you create that C Corp, S Corp, LLC, the bad actors are coming for you, right? And it, organizations or people say not if, but when, and that hurts my heart. But it's really about building a solid program and repeatable processes from the very beginning. And that to me is really important. And so while we work with organizations that are usually like minimum of 100 users to about 10,000, 15,000 users, you know, we're here to help anybody that wants to make sure that, again, your doors are locked, your windows are locked. So when the bad people, and they're there, start knocking, they're going to go because you're a little bit harder on the outside than somebody
Mm.
else. So again, it's that piece to the puzzle that everybody needs to be cognizant to of. Uh, I don't know if that answered your question,
No,
but
and it does absolutely that when we think about any organization, we talk about do I have the right supplies? Do I have the right people on the bus? But sometimes we just hope and wish, as you said, that, oh, okay, I got an IT person in the back. We got our computer systems. We back it up once a day. We're good. Well, you just wait for the planets to line up, and that happens more frequently than you would expect. And then you become that company that's in the news and gets a lot of bad PR. So let us not be that person. But as you, as a leader out there, as you have your strategic planning, make sure that cybersecurity is a line item as risky as just trying to find your next client or protect clients. You need to protect your business so you're viable. But one of the things that you and I were just chit-chatting about was that when you walk alongside your client, should they when they decide to engage with you, it's not just a journey. And I'd love for you to share a little bit with your audience what makes your company different in that journey.
sure. So, I mean, the enemy right now is time, right? And you know, Towerwall is a pure play cybersecurity consulting company. So we basically have three pillars of excellence. We have our what's called governance, risk, and compliance. So that's where we help our customers actually operationalize cybersecurity and building their programs, their incident response plans, their disaster recovery plans, their data classification plans, who has access to what, all of those types of things, user awareness. Then you have the vulnerability management. So that's where poking holes are really important. And this is all part of the whole cyber program that organizations need to build. And so doing the external penetration testing, doing internal vulnerability, if you have a website, doing an application penetration test, looking at your firewalls, looking at your wireless, figuring out where the bad actors could potentially get in. And then what is the technology that you have in place? And is it crossing each other? Is there something that's happening so you have all of this technology and you're only utilizing 10% of each thing? Well, that doesn't make you secure, right? So,
Mhm.
actually utilizing the tech stack that you have, and that's what my sales consultants do, is really, again, we use that walk alongside because we badge ourselves as our clients. And the clients that actually
Mhm.
utilize that are so successful. It's crazy. And so, you look at that, you look at your cloud security, your infrastructure, all of those types of things, but it's not one thing and it's never one and done. Because
Mhm.
I used to always say, again, cybersecurity is not a destination, it's a journey. But now it's not a journey, it's a velocity problem because it's going so fast. So how do you utilize us to help you make sure that you stay ahead of those bad actors.
And I love what you say. And I think anybody out there listening, regardless of where you're at in the organization, whether you're at the top or, in supply chain, having this insight and bringing this to your leadership should be front and center because I'll tell you a quick story. I got a website and I thought everything was fine. And then it broke. And then I went in and started seeing that people were trying to penetrate it. And, I got a guy that comes in and fixes my site every once in a while. But then in that process, I said, oh my, if I want to continue to be a sustainable business, to have a place where people can find me and engage with me, I now need to invest in a longer term relationship with my guy to always make sure that I am operational, functioning as my clients would expect, and I'm protected. Because there's nothing worse when somebody comes to visit me, I'm there, and then all of a sudden maybe they can't. You lose trust. And so people can forgive people when you have cyber issues, but if it happens a second time, that is a game changer, can negatively impact your business. So appreciate anybody out there should be asking the questions, are we sure? Are we sure that we're protected? So I'd love to go a little bit more into other areas because again, we'll come back to Tower Wall, but you are a trailblazer. You have many awards to your name, many projects that you do outside of being the head of Tower Wall. What are you most proud of? Because I could go through this and it'll take a couple, 3 minutes, but what's some of what your most proudest achievements that you have been bestowed upon or have been engaged with?
So there's a couple actually.
Yeah.
One is our Cyber Summit.
Okay.
So we created a Cyber Summit about 15 years ago. So we actually had our 14th annual Cyber Summit a couple weeks ago in May. And I sat on the foundation board of a community college, Mass Bay Community College here locally. And uh, we were building out this summit, and they had just started a cyber program, a certificate program that
Yeah.
now is an associate's degree. And so the CIO and I, and they're a client too, CIO and I were sitting, and I said, you know what would be really cool is if we could actually have the summit at Mass Bay. And Michael goes, oh, wow, let's go talk to the president. So we went and sat with the president, and the president at that point said, yeah, let's do it. And so over the 14 years, we have actually had our business, our customers, our partners, all of that stuff come to the campus so that they understand that they now were introduced to their program to some of the students,
Mm.
but also all the proceeds that come out of the summit, we have donated back to scholarships. And so almost like $85,000 over the past 15 years or 14 years that we have given back. We just again had our last summit. And so there'll be another X amount of dollars coming out as soon as we figure out all the dollars and cents. So that to me is like really, really cool because again, it's our lead generation as a company, right? It's getting our vendor partners in, it's connecting with community, it's really giving good information to our clients and to the business community in Mass or New England. And it's just a good thing for everybody. So that to me is really, really cool. The other one is the 50 over 50, because somebody said, Michelle, did you know you got fit? And I was like, what? And so backstory on that, there was a woman from my church and she has now passed away. And I went to go visit her and she said, Michelle, she said, I just want you to know that I put your name into Forbes 50 over 50. And this was like probably 3-4 years ago. I mean, after or before I got this thing. And so I was like, I think Debbie was looking from heaven saying, see, you got it. So that to me was like, oh, thank you very much.
I
So
mean,
that
that
was
is
cool.
that is so beautiful when others recognize your value and we being humble and saying thank you, that's just what I do. It is so nice when there is that external validation. I think it fuels the soul to know to keep doing what we're doing despite the ups, the downs, the sideways. Just know other people are watching and absolutely think so highly of you. Beautiful. And I want to go back to this summit here because what started out with just another meal, a coffee, and a great idea has turned into so much more. And I think what's so inspiring from this is, we are taught as a culture, hustle, 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 get that result, get that customer. That's how we're judged when we're in that corporate sphere. But we as individuals have to take a leadership role just like yourself, is what do we need to do to give back? Because while in the near term we may be giving back, we're making introductions, helping other people to build relationships, the scholarships, in the long term, Towerwall, Michelle, will be remembered because of that contribution to society. And that's what people will remember. And so for anybody out there, I want you just to awake a little bit, waken up. It's not just about the work that we do, but how can you impact people within an organization? How can you impact the community? Because it will pay dividends later. It may not necessarily be financial, but I think, Michelle, you're probably realizing so many more benefits than just, running that particular event, I'm sure.
So Deb, I'm going to just add to that. In when we do interviews, or I actually had the chief revenue officer of a $1 billion company
Mhm.
say to me, when we do interviews for salespeople, yeah, they come in, they're all shiny and pretty when they come in and sit with me, to tell me how great they are. But then I go out and talk to the receptionist,
Mm.
right? And that's the person, and that's the real person that you're interviewing. And so just remember that it's not treating the people that can do something for you good. It's treating the people that can't do anything for you really good, because that's where it makes a difference. I recently had a story, and he just actually wrote a testimonial on LinkedIn
Mhm.
about my team. But this gentleman I met, I don't know, 25 years ago. And I said something to him in passing because we were doing testing for a very large telco company. And and later on, I mean, literally, like, I think we reconnected a couple years ago, and he said,
Mhm.
Michelle, I'll never forget what you said to me. And I'm like, and and he said, you know what, you're making a difference. You're pointing out things that people need to pay attention to, so don't stop. And he said, you just gave me the courage to continue on. And it's those words that come out that you don't even know that you're having impact to. And that could be at the grocery store, it could be at work, but just always, you always think about that, because what you do to help others, you know comes back tenfold to help yourself.
I know. And Michelle, you and I are going to become new best friends here,
I
far
think
beyond
so too.
just this interview, because I too have had one of those out of the blue when you least expected. You reconnect with somebody and they say, "This is how you impacted me." And also the keep going. You have so many people. Again, I'm turning my audience, even though Michelle and I are having a wonderful time here. You never know, like, again, who's watching, because because of your kindness or connecting with humanity, may actually change the trajectory of that day, that week, and maybe a lifetime because of how you treated people. And I'm not going to go into my stories, but just know, continue to do good onto others, and just continue to do good onto others. That's what we need to do. So let's come back to you. Family, you've got your husband in the business, both of your daughters in the business. How all does that work, working with family?
So when I shared earlier in 1999, when I bought the company back, I actually, this funny story, my husband was a director CIO of a biotech company. And I actually literally wrote an offer letter, put it on his pillow that said, I don't know if I can pay you. I don't know where this journey is going to take us. But I'd really like you to come and be my CTO and run the technical aspect of the company. And he joined uh, in 1999 or 2000. And so he and I have raised kids, worked together. Sometimes it's been hard, sometimes it's been great. Right now we're on a really good path. It's awesome. But that's been fun. Again, I shared that Janelle had called like 2019 and said, hey, I'd love to come join. And so she started in sales. Like a year and a half later,
Mhm.
I made her director of sales. And 2 years ago, I made her VP of operations and sales. So she has a degree in, I think it's biochemistry. So her mind thinks completely different than mine. She's very
Mhm.
process oriented and she thinks like $1 billion company. So we have things that
Mhm.
normal smaller businesses do not have, which helps us with our trajectory of where we want to go.
Beautiful.
And then our middle daughter, Jacqueline, actually worked at that same company that Janelle worked at and went to another cyber uh, tech company
Mhm.
and then just called and said, you know what, I'd like to join the Towerwall sales team. And while she is awesome as well, she now works for her older sister. And they all call me Michelle. And there's no family orientation here at all. And we just work and everybody gets along. So
And
it's
when you
pretty
go home
cool.
at night or when you guys gather outside of work, what do they call you?
Mom.
Okay. So it's so very interesting. Family-owned businesses can work. My husband is third generation painting and decorating contractor. He's since in, construction management now, but he worked for and with his father, and on the job it was Joe, and over the dinner table it was Dad. So you can make it absolutely work. Um, so amazing backstory here, but I just want to ask one last question before we bring it to a close. I value and understand what you do. You've talked about your approach being a journey, and it's also about velocity, but maybe share a client engagement of where they maybe had issues or problems or vulnerabilities, and where did you take them, and what was the outcome of some of that work? I know you have many stories, but just share one with us so anybody out there can relate to the impact that Tower Wall can have.
Absolutely. So we have a client that actually has been a client since 2010. Is that crazy? And this client bought technology from us and
Mhm.
then came to the summit. I believe it was in 2022 or 23,
Mhm.
and came up to me and said, "Oh my goodness, Michelle, I had no idea all the stuff that you do, and how big you are." And so he said, I need some cyber stuff. And so we said, okay, why don't we come in? And it was a higher ed education organization. And the Graham-Leach-Bliley Act, while it hits financial service organizations, now it is coming into anybody that is processing loan type stuff, right? And that would be higher ed with their financial aid and services. And so we said, okay, let's come in and do a risk assessment on GLBA and see where you are. And and walking in there in like the first 2 days, we said they don't have anything. So this risk assessment is worthless. And so we completely pivoted and said, let's take that money that you have allocated for the risk assessment and let's attach a VCSO to it or a cyber consultant to help actually build out the program. And so Greg, our internal CISO, who I have known for 24 years, and he's
Mhm.
brought us to 6 different organizations throughout his career, but he went and walked alongside Joe's team and helped build out their information security program. He built out their incident response plan. They did tabletop exercises. They built the things that they need to adhere to GLBA. They did data discovery and data management. Who has access to what? But
Mhm.
there's so
Mhm.
many different questions and things that people need to pay attention to that it gets daunting and it's like a deer in a headlight. And so we take that away and kind of take things at chunks at a time
Yeah.
and make sure that it's digestible and it can be board communicated,
Mhm.
because the
Mhm.
boards now of whether it's a higher ed, whether it's a biotech, whatever it is, they're being held accountable. So really, again, building those programs around what the organizations need to adhere to. This particular college just did a case study and I had tears in my eyes when I was reading it because he was talking about just our journey and our relationship. And that's what we do with our clients. It's not one and done. It's a forever relationship.
And thank you for sharing that story. What I really took away from it is that you really had the customer's best interest in mind. Some consultants that may say, okay, this is what they asked me to do, and they just do it, but you saw them for who they were and where they needed to go on their journey. And being able to throw out the original plan and say, this is what I think you actually need is the greater value that you provide. And building that trust. And like you say, they've been a client since 2010. It's not just a one and done from what I see that Towerwall does. It's that relationship, that journey, and even now it's what can we do with velocity to stay ahead of the curve because things are changing so fast. I so enjoy getting to know you. And again, like I said, this is not a one and done. You're a wonderful human. But I do want to bring this show to a close and give you an opportunity one last time to share any insights or thoughts for the people listening.
You know what? We help our customers, build programs based on risk to stay ahead of those bad actors because you can't just sit in place because they will come after you. And so it hurts my heart when somebody says, I don't have anything anybody wants. I mean, we've all read that Google, Apple, billions of passwords have just been leaked over the past 6 or 7 months. And so everybody is a target. So just be aware, be vigilant, and it can happen to you, but we're here to help.
Beautiful words, Michelle, and equally a beautiful person to get to know. So I am just so grateful that you reached out to me to be on the show. You provided so much value. I just want to say thank you for dropping in, and I wish you well and the Tower Wall team continued success.
Love you. Thank you so much.